What's the most messed up thing you saw at school? When I was a freshman, we had a problem with a gang in our school. They were mostly wannabe thugs who went around intimidating everyone else. Real lowlifes. Everyone else hated them, but we were all afraid to do anything about it, because if you messed with them, you messed with all of them. Even teachers and administrators didn't want anything to do with them. Whatever punishments they handed down to them didn't faze them. They didn't care about school or graduating, so what effect does a suspension have? They only went in the first place because the law said they had to attend. So, they basically had run of the whole school, tyrannizing everyone and everything in their path. One day, one of the lowlifes picked a fight with a senior, who was in the show choir. The guy was one of the nicest guys you ever met. Normal, in pretty much every way conceivable. Let's call him B, for the sake of anonymity. B didn't provoke the lowlife, but the lowlife decided he had a problem with B, but, instead of letting the lowlife punk him out, B squared up against him. With a few well-placed punches, no formal martial arts education, B took down the lowlife, who had a wild, sloppy, street fighting style. Everyone was stunned. The lowlife was humiliated, and that wasn't a good thing, because this now meant that B had a problem with everyone else in the gang. Amazingly though, instead of the standard suspension for fighting, the school administrators didn't do anything. They pretended like it never happened. They didn't even call him into the office or anything. B was already a hero to the rest of us. A legend. Sure enough, the gang began to harass B, calling him out in the hall, calling him names for being in the show choir, each taking their turn trying to provoke him to fight. A few days went by, when the next toughest dude in the gang confronted B in the cafeteria, looking for a fight. He pushed B, who initially acted like he didn't want to fight. But when he pushed him again, sure enough, B squared up and with 2 punches, knocked lowlife number 2 to the ground before the school security guard could break in to bust up the fight. The cafeteria was silent. Everyone was stunned. Once again, there were no repercussions for B. B had now taken out 2 of the 3 toughest guys in the gang. The rest were mostly wimpy little followers, who relegated their influence to heckling, who didn't pose any real threat, and would scatter like cockroaches whenever there was any threat of danger. Everyone knew the resident bad ass, let's call him J, would come for B now. It was just a matter of time. Again, a few more days went by, before the final confrontation went down. I had the incredible fortune of being front and center for the last round. I was walking obliviously through the hall with my friend on the way to class, when I heard J yell for B. B knew it was coming. J was a good 4 inches taller, as well as 30 pounds heavier, mostly muscle, than B. It looked like a real-life David and Goliath, with the scrawny B just standing there, silent, not talking, just standing there and facing J. B dropped his books and it was on. J swung like a drunk, wild animal and B avoided most of the early throws, but J landed a lucky solid one that knocked B down. He popped up immediately, and when J went in for the knockout, B came through with an uppercut so solid that J's head flung up and a stream of blood literally splattered across the wall next to him. J was down, but when he tried to get back up, he couldn't even stand. He staggered and fell back down. It was over. I stood there right in front and watched the whole thing. One of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in my whole life. B, a normal, nice guy, with no training or even prior fight history, single-handedly beating up the 3 biggest guys in the school. The gang was decimated, their street cred destroyed by a scrawny dude from the show choir. That was easily the most messed up thing I ever saw in school, and it was beautiful.